Hi, welcome to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Thanks for joining the conversation. Coach Dan John and I are back discussing life, destiny, cannibalism, and, of course, the sword in the stone. In T.H. White's book, he raises the question, are you prepared for your destiny? It prompts an in-depth conversation on the hero's journey. I love dissecting this book with Dan, which entails so much more than just reading a story. I'm also very grateful to Dan for giving me some fitness tips on how to get my glutes in tip-top shape. Coach Dan John is a world-renowned strength coach and mentor to many in the fitness industry. He has competed at the highest levels of Olympic lifting, Highland Games, and the weight pentathlon. He has authored numerous books and continues to educate through his coaching and workshops worldwide. Please share this podcast with others if you are enjoying it and rate it on your platform of choice. You can also take one extra step to show your love by donating to the show and supporting the work I do by visiting patreon.com/SifuMimiChan or my website. Thanks for the support. I appreciate you. For comments or suggestions, reach out on social media at SifuMimiChan. Now, on with the show. Hello, Dan. Nice to see you again.
It's good to see you. It's been, seems like it's been a while, but I don't think it's been terribly long, right?
No, I think it's actually been under our normal 3-month time. I think we're just like a little over the 2-month mark, but it's because so much happens in such short lengths of time these days.
Yeah, that's true. Since I've talked to you last, I've been in England teaching, and my life has been interesting, and just got a new book, working on a new book. I don't know how much more I can add to it. I was proofreading yesterday and the day before, and I'm like, I would add things. I'm like, oh, I just got to put this thing to bed. I can't even look at it anymore. Yeah. By the time you publish a book, you hate it so much. And people say, do you read your own work? And it's like, God, I can't look at it. It's loathe it.
I only know the same experience from a film perspective, but I do want to do the book thing, and I will come to you for all sorts of advice when and if that time ever finally comes.
Good.
Yeah. So you were at the scene of the Sword and the Stone, and in England.
Well, of course, where the Sword and the Stone originates. Now, in the Sword and the Stone, they go to London, and it's a fairly long journey towards the end of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, where the historic Arthur, we could be days trying to, Baden Hill, Cornwall. I mean, everybody claims Arthur, which is actually good. That's actually what you kind of want for a mythical figure. In fact, my gosh, the name just dropped out of my head. The Austrian psychologist, not Freud, not Wittgenstein. Well, who can forget the other one who talked about your dreams a lot. He basically said that our childhood memories are darn it, I hate that. It's when the name is right inside your head. You have to just walk away for a second.
Contribute when I'm not quite sure.
But the idea that we adopt as a culture, we adopt the hero. That's why it's so often the hero has no parents, or there's a weird parenting story. Mm-hmm. So we can. Oh, it's right there. Yeah, it'll come right there.
Is it Viktor Frankl or no?
No. But yeah, he's the third. So there's Frankl, there's Freud, and then there's the third one. And it was just in my head. Don't worry about it. But good morning, and things are going well for you career-wise?
I can't really complain. I'm fortunate that people still show up to learn about traditional martial arts, Chinese martial arts, and there's still an interest. So one can't complain when that door is open and then people step through. We're very, very fortunate in that regard. So yeah, I have to say, I selfishly reached out to you last week. Yes, of course, to always join me on the podcast. But going through my own kind of fitness journey, I was like, I have a bunch of knowledgeable people at my disposal that I completely I feel like I should be taking more advantage of. And honestly, I do your glute loop workout all the time, but not very consistently. And then I asked Oscar, I was like, I feel like I should be a little bit more I should be progressing, so to speak. And, when I actually dedicate the time and prioritize as I should. And I was like, I guess I should just ask Coach Dan John about that.
So, yeah, on glute work. So there is great value in taking the glute loop and, beating yourself senseless with it. Hip thrust followed by clamshell. We do the 15 hip thrusts, 15 clamshells, 14, 14, 13, 13, all the way down. We also do another one where we do 25 hip thrusts, 10 clamshells, 20, 10, 15, 10, 10, 10, 5, 10. And there's value to those high rep glute workouts, but those would be, especially for a female, you probably twice a week just to feel that burn, just to remind yourself of what you're doing. But you do need to train up. And I think that's the mistake. My favorite little template for glutes. In fact, I did that literally yesterday, which is an overworked phrase, but it's true in this case. I do the hip thrust, and there's only 2 rounds of this. You do a hip thrust variation, however it works out, higher rep, 20, 25, a deadlift variation, 5 to 10 reps, a squat variation, 5 to 10 reps, and then the clamshell to failure, 2 rounds. And so the hip thrust is marvelous. It works, everything in that hole, but just 2 rounds. And so yesterday I did hip thrust, double banded. So I put on 2 bands around my waist as resistance. I have the glute loop to push my knees out. I do an ab pull with another resistance band. So my abs are engaged, my glute loop's engaged, and then I drive for 25. I do deficit deadlifts. I did 8s yesterday, goblet squat for 5, and then clamshells, 2 rounds. And that is a very hard, good old fashioned pre-exhaust workout. Nothing new, but boy, it opens your eyes. Well,
my eyes are getting wider and wider right now, going, oh my.
And then for females, if all you did was focus on the glutes, because the glutes make the ab wall work so hard, the glutes make the quads work hard. I think most females could get away with a serious glute training and then maybe just presses. And that's interesting. I say that because when I first went online, there was a group of women who allowed me to go on their forum, and they called themselves Moo Cow, which it wasn't negative. It was about low carb. They were low carb, and to be in the club, you had to have lost 100 pounds. Oh. And one thing the women would always say is that squats and presses or deadlifts and presses is all they needed. And of course, when you look at the work of like Yonda and some other people, you can see that's exactly what he would tell people. And so really, if you work your, we call them guns and buns. If you work your guns and buns, you're going to get most of the benefits of the weight room. And it's that simple. And the guy I kept forgetting was Carl Jung.
Oh, Carl Jung, of course. Oh.
J-U-N-G.
Fail.
Yeah. So I knew it would happen the second.
Yeah, I should have gotten that too. Okay, that makes sense. So you're saying twice a week is a good starter, or that's like the enough? Because I feel like I sit on my butt so much that there needs to be this counterbalance to it.
Okay. So, and now I kind of wish Brett Contreras was here, but basically,
we'll invite him next time.
Yeah, basically, you'd be looking at kind of 2 burn workouts a week and maybe 2 strength workouts a week. And if you're going to do the burn, go for a walk after that. Hop up and get that 3-hour walk in, or the 1 hour. Walk around the block, or whatever the hell you're going to do. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I appreciate the advice. Thank you so much. And
Sure.
I will try to be diligent and I'll let you know how it goes.
Oh, you're fine. You're doing great.
It's funny because people presume, and then of course there's leaders like you who do and say and actually it seem to really enjoy it, but I think people presume, like, when you're a martial arts teacher or a fitness professional or that you just love exercise and you want to do it all the time, all day. And I think it's I mean, for me, it's a personal misconception that it takes like effort. I'm like, all right, just go foam roll and get going, and then, I always talk to Brett Jones and he's like, just get started and see how it goes. And then you end up doing more, right? Once you kind of get going. But
Yeah. Well,
I think it's presumptuous that people always think that all I want to do is work out all the time.
yeah. Well, like in my case, that's why I have those open workouts every day, is just to, because I know I should train every day at my age. And what keeps me training at my age every day is the fact that people show up to train with me at 9:30. And yes, by the way, yesterday I got my glute workout in at 9. A half an hour 41 got there because I wanted to make sure I got extra work in. Which is what my point is, that it's kind of funny because I know I need to do all this extra work, but I have to remind myself to do it too. It's so yeah. It's funny how the human brain is an interesting thing. It's like people think. I think the human brain trends. I can't remember exactly what the reticulating activating system, the RAS or something. If you start throwing the discus, all of a sudden you'll see discus stuff all over the place. You'll all of a sudden start seeing discus stuff. Mm-hmm. And if you decide to get into kettlebells, all of a sudden, you'll be open the paper and you'll see a kettlebell. And I think with those of us who train, when I'm drinking beer and sitting on a couch, I tend to want to drink more beer and sit on the couch longer. And when I go into the gym to work out, I want to spend more time in the gym working out and hanging out. And we tend to trend in directions. You know what I'm saying? Probably a long way to get there, but we tend to. I know myself. Once I'm working out, I work out. Once I'm in the habit of working out every day, I work out every day. And then if I do take a short break, it's like, we're talking 2 weeks. It's like I forgot everything, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing because how quickly, and I think it's like that frequency illusion. It's called like the beta something Meinhof, I think, phenomenon, but like where you see something that like if you buy something and then you see it more often and all of that.
Like a red car.
Yeah, like a red car. But I feel like I don't know, I guess I have to stay in. Like Oscar and I did this thing where, okay, for 30 days, we're going to try to check off on the calendar. So we've done like our little bit, right? And that way it's like visual, and me, I like color coding and things like that. And that was pretty effective. So just like the tracking and then seeing visually, like if I miss a day, I would see it on the calendar, like it didn't get checked. So I kind of need that, but I don't know that I have, I guess I wish I just had more of that motivation all the time and everything. And then like, you're right. As soon as you just say, okay, well, that month's gone, let's take a week. Then it's like getting back on track is not always that easy. And you would think it's like, but we did it for 30 days straight. It's so easy to not erase that work, but it's so easy to kind of lose progress and it's so much harder to gain that progress.
Well, I always tell teachers,
people get frustrated.
I always tell school teachers to sit down, take an hour aside in April and write down all the stupid things you did. Because when the school ends, and it does it, we always describe a school year like an airplane landing. You start up here and you go, by the time you get to June, no one cares. But if you write things down in April and you look at it in the middle of July, you'll be like, oh yeah, I was going to do that. Why did I think I could? Assigning term papers at the end of a term, a session, a semester, a quarter, whatever. All these things. I think I became a much better teacher by simply jotting a few notes and not making the same mistakes year in, year out, which is why I'm such a big, I'm pointing to my journal right there, my diary.
You are such a big master.
and I think one of the things it does is it stops you from making those same errors over and over and over. I in almost every journal I have, I always start off my journal with it's called a little list I call things I know. And one of them is, if you want for me to have good body composition, I can't drink a lot of booze. For me, if I want good body composition, I should only lift 3 days a week. That doesn't mean I don't exercise. I only lift 3 days a week. I know if I eat vegetables at every meal. These are things I know. And I start off every journal by writing these things down. They're always a little different. Mm. But if I can come back to that when I finish that one, I don't know how many more. I'm probably 3/4 of the way through that particular journal, and it's cool because I got it. Did you see the movie Cyrano when it came out with Peter Dinklage?
But not the new one. No.
Oh, I thought it was brilliant. So, but because I went to it, they gave you journals with Cyrano in it. So it was only, nice. So it's only about 4 months old, but I'll be done with it soon. I tend to go through journals faster than I used to, but in a couple of months, I'll have a new, leather bound journal. I'll open it up and I'll write down things I know. And I try not to look at the one before yet. And when I finish the things I know, then I open up the other one and I look at it. And almost always it's the same 8 or 9 things. But there's always that one like, oh yeah, don't be stupid. Don't forget that, don't forget. Why did you forget? Yeah. So take time off, whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
I like that you kind of are trying not to cheat from your own notes. That's
yeah. But that's what you tend to do. And you get into relationships and, you all of a sudden, there's a thing I read not long ago where you probably will never know the last time you picked up your child. So I went over to Kelly's house and I said, come here. And I picked her up and I said, okay, well, this is when I'm going to pick her up. And then I picked up Lindsay and they're both like, what the hell are you doing? I said, and they're both moms now. And I'm like, I read this thing that you'll never know when the last time you picked up your child. You'll never know. And I thought to myself, well, at least I know it's been in the last 5 months.
Yes. And it's really great that you also have the ability as well, because you have strong Dan John.
Yeah. So I think there's a bit of there's a wisdom to keeping good notes, not cheating on your notes, and constant. I think this is a rhythm. So getting back to your glute question, I mean, once you start, like we're going to have gentle listeners say, well, what's a glute loop? Well, everyone has them now. Well, how do I get one? Well, buy one. Well, then what I do? Use it. Well, how do I use it? Well, everyone just puts up those defenses and it's like, just here, this very inexpensive thing can do all this work for you.
Yes. And there's like a wealth of knowledge and things that you have out there in particular as well, which, I always have your links up there for people in case they want to, see you in action and follow you. And you're so vigilant about not just your Wandering Weights, but like your newsletter, but also the podcast and the university and so much.
Yeah. The university's going well. Yeah. I'm very pleased about that. Yeah. Wow.
Fantastic. Yeah. So much information that you share and put out with us. But as most of our listeners know, you and I always delve into the ever so lovely Sword in the Stone, and slowly but surely are we getting through it. And just like you don't like to look at your notes and cheat, I do the same. I try to kind of read back through, look at my notes, then I allow myself to look at your notes because I feel like then I'm cheating somehow on this unofficial test.
Well, good. Well, I'm pulling up. I have my notes in case we need them.
Yes. So we spent a long time on chapter 9, which was great. And now we're heading into 10. But before we jumped in, I know that you are very scholarly and astute in Latin and derivatives and things like that. And as I read through this book, which is so well penned, but also I always am reminded of my lack of vocabulary and remembrance of that, because I took Latin in high school and I remember doing derivative competitions and everything. And now it feels like it's completely gone, but it's fun to kind of read through and come up and read words and understand them. And then also just references, right? So it's like you're reading, but then you have to stop to look things up while you're reading if you really want to capture what it's saying. And one of my favorite lines, which also is in the Disney film, was where he yells, "Castor and Pollux, blow me to Bermuda." And it was so visual for me from watching it as a child, because, he comes back in his Bermuda shorts and he just like screams it. And I had no idea as a child why he yelled that. It's just this crotchety old man yelling, and then reading it through so many times with you and going through this journey. And finally now I don't have to look up as much who Castor and Pollux are, but I still don't have like the depth of, knowledge on these, I guess, half brothers, Greek twin half brothers or something. And it's kind of I guess a disturbing familial line, but I want to ask why he says Castor and Pollux in particular to blow him to Bermuda.
Well, yeah, actually, and I'm glad you brought up the Disney scene, because it is. I didn't like the movie. Hang on. I like, but there's a couple layers about Castor and Pollux. Yes, they're twins. One was a boxer, and the other one was the patron of horses or something like that. But what's interesting is that Christianity utilizes Castor and Pollux, and it's in Acts, in the Acts of the Apostles, where they show up, and there's the Acts specifically mentions the twin figures of Castor and Pollux. I think they get. So you got boxing, and and some say that Paul was a boxer, and you got the horse thing and all that. I don't really know why I'm going down this road, but it is a funny scene, and they take good care of them, and in the movie and in the book, Merlin uses it as a teaching moment to tell Wart not to swear. Right, in both, yeah. Don't swear, which is great, yeah.
But so I love the fact that I'm learning as I learn, right? Like you're reading and enjoying, but then you have that benefit, which is why reading is fundamental, and we tell kids to read and all of that. And like there's so many layers. And one of the words that jumped out at me while I was finishing up this chapter was anachronism, and I really liked that one because I feel like there's so much of that. And I was curious, like, and of course it means like it's something that doesn't belong in the appropriate period, right? Like,
that is practically everything about Merlin is an anachronism. When we first go to his little hut, his cottage, there's stuff like there's trophies from the 1920s that he won when he was in school. There's billets, and there's signs. There's, train signs from the London Underground on the walls, and they're right next to a stuffed crocodile, which is right next to this, which right next to, I think that's the cleverness of The Sword and the Stone, is that, so to explain Merlin, T.H. White decided to put him backwards in time. So he remembers the future. And he finds out what's going to happen in his future by, knowing history or asking questions. So if you live backwards in time, your memories are going to be stuff that's coming up. So he keeps these little trinkets up on his walls. Like, I don't know. Okay. Yeah. This is a 25th anniversary mug. Okay. Well, I keep that. It's a fun little mug from the John Powell Discus Camp, and thank you, Paul Northway, for designing that. I keep that now as a reminder what happened. Well, he keeps that, and it becomes the future. So when you go to the John Powell camp, I would have the mug. What's going to happen 25 years from now? And it just so that's the whole. So the more you read the story, the more you fully understand Merlin's constant confusions. He's brilliant, but he's always, the word is muddled. He's always muddled in the stories. And then I go on too long, but I think it's the genius of T.H. White in this story, of how he took something as simple as that. He wrote a letter in 1939 before. The Sword and the Stone had been written. The American version had come out. He was doing much better financially. the next two books, The Candle in the Wind and The Ill-Made Night, were pretty much finished. And he was getting the fourth book done. And he figures out in this letter, he goes, I actually can save Arthur. I can save him. Now, sadly, because of the war, the book, the Book of Merlin, doesn't come out until 1975, which, you young readers now don't have to wait for it like I did. But what was interesting about the book is that White feels that he can save Arthur. And the way he saves Arthur is basically by having what's about to happen in his world, which is World War II. And he solves World War II in the Badger's Den. And that's where he brings in the ants and the geese stories to show the totalitarian forces of, he would probably include the communist Russians, the Nazis, the Mussolini's fascists. Mm-hmm. Those are the ants, and everybody, the ants are the fascists, and and then of course the geese show us that war is a waste and there are no boundaries. I think when the decision was made to put those two stories into The Sword and the Stone in that final version called The Once and Future King, I think that was a poor decision, because I don't think those stories are solid in The Sword and the Stone. They don't fit with the story, and of course the Once and Future King edition, sorry about that, got rid of Madam Mim, and it got rid of a whole bunch of the transformation stories. Mm-hmm. And especially the one like the one with the snake, the dreams of the snake, the dreams of the owls. Those are they're such beautiful stories. And but I think White's vision of this I can save Arthur was beautiful, but because of World War II and paper issues, and I think he kind of just washed his hands of it, and I'll be honest with you, the more I write, the more I understand why he would, I'm sure he made a ton of money with that 1958, those small revisions and that he made. He probably made a crap load of money, because the Once and Future King, and I got multiple copies of those editions. I mean, that was a massive bestseller, and it got turned into the Broadway show Camelot, and then the terrible movie. Oh, God, it was Camelot, and of course, and then the Disney, movie. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Once and Future King comes out in 58, and by 1963, there's a Disney movie and a Broadway play. So, but what's missing is he doesn't save Arthur.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about it before, and it's been a very long time because I don't reread those, the continuation, because it's so depressing. It's like really depressing and heart-wrenching. Mm-hmm. I kind of just need it to end at the Once and Future King, The Sword and the Stone, because it's a lot. But I'm curious, because you also are a writer, and it seems like circumstance can clearly definitively change even something like this, right? Like where he had this path and there was the great success and everything that was happening, and we get frustrated as viewers and listeners, right? But you have some empathy coming from understanding what it's like to have publishing deadlines and then circumstance of life.
Yeah, like World War II. I mean, that's and of course, I'm not a big fan of some of his biographers. They spend a little bit too much time in there. I think his most famous biographer isn't writing a biography about T.H. White. She's writing a biography about herself, and that's a cruel thing to say, but I've always felt that. But obviously, I mean, I guess growing up in post-World War I Britain, the school system at the time was just hyper brutal. Of course, England had lost 1 in 4 young men after midnight. The streets of London, as I understand it, would get very crowded with people who had been burned to death by the war. And so they had this whole little, not burned to death, I'm sorry, burned terribly by plane incidents and this and that. And I read one time that there was this whole strange nightlife of burn victims. And, so if you're growing up in that period, of course, I think White was impacted by the Boer War in some cases. And, as he was part of that India thing. And I'm not defending White or anything. I'm just saying that these are complex people. And, you sort of see it in the work of Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien also. Tolkien had a World War I experience, which was brutal, and he lost his best friends, I think. And when you read, not so much The Hobbit, but when you read, I think it's The Two Towers, you can see him, dealing with his own issues from World War I. And my point on all this is that when you read an author like White, and then you read their biography, sometimes when you read an author like Tolkien, you read a good biography, and then you go back in, all of a sudden these things leap off the page at you. Mm-hmm. I think it won't be, I'm please, gentle listener, I apologize, but when my life story with how busy I got in the 90s and aughts with, raising the kids, and, I was working 2 jobs, making them breakfast, making them dinner. And to still train as an athlete, I had to completely rework how I looked at training. And that's where the easy strengths and those 15-minute workouts, the 1 lifts a day, the transformation program, all those things came in. Whereas if I have a different life experience, I just train like I always did, 5 days a week, Olympic lifting and throwing the discus every single day, and I'd never improve. And I don't think we'd have this conversation right now without all how busy I got. Yeah.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, out of curiosity, because you have such an appreciation for the prose and, these stories, and you are already such a accomplished writer. And most of what you do is, of course, with fitness and strength training. And do you have an interest in writing fiction, or do you on the side write fiction?
Yeah, actually, I had I had a 300-page little book. And when I left this job, the day I left, the IT guy just pressed delete on all my files. And I was told that I'd be able to have access to them. And so I said, okay, I'll just wait a couple of days. And I lost the entire thing. But basically, it was a school teacher from the 80s who, I don't know if you don't remember this, back at the McMartin case and all that insanity, where these preschools, I can't even believe. Here's the thing, folks, you won't even believe, if you didn't, you can look it up. In the 1980s, these crazy ass people thought that in preschools they were teaching the kids witchcraft and demon worship. And this one, and it's interesting because it happened here in Utah too, happened a lot in Southern California, which is never a surprise because that place is batshit crazy. And it happened like in Wisconsin and Minnesota also. But these social workers would sit down with kids and say, did you fly in a broom today in your preschool class? Yes, I did. And this one kid was telling about how they were taken away and beaten on submarines during the school day.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, just stop for a second. How many preschoolers do you know would actually get on a submarine? I mean, just do the logistics of it. And they were believing this crap. I used to lecture on these satanic cults of the 1980s in my ethics class, because the students would sit there and say, wait, how do people believe that? And of course, that's the conversation. Mm-hmm. And it's still a conversation. I mean, this guy, the people who listen to that far right stuff about, what was that pizza parlor in New York where they were, torturing babies for their blood, and the guy showed up with a what? You believe that, yeah. There's no basement in this building, but people will believe that stuff. And truth, and we know this from it's true. The Nazis taught us this. Tail Gunner Joe, the congressman, taught us this. If you make a lie big enough, there's a trending to believe in it. So that was a strange little leap I took.
Well, then it goes into conspiracy theories and how much people want conspiracy, or like tend to like lean towards wanting to hear more, and that fascination.
Yeah, right. You can have 1,000 shows on Bigfoot. Oh, God, that's Bigfoot. That was a coyote. No, I'm an expert on Bigfoot. I've heard that before. Well, that's a dog. No, that's Bigfoot. Yeah. You know those. I don't know if you've ever seen those terrible Bigfoot shows. That
I don't watch them.
Oh my God, they're worth your time watching one, and they're all the exact same. You know.
But your fiction, your book that got erased.
So I'm sorry that was. Sorry, my brain is in 5 different places today.
That's okay. No, it was a great tangent, actually. But
so this teacher gets caught up in that and decides to, because another friend gets thrown in prison and terrible things happen. Mm-hmm. So this teacher decides to start a new life, and on start a new life, all these things happen, and basically, when he leaves his old life, he's overweight and he's a kind of lazy, somebody just slides through life the whole time. But through escaping that life and going through the underground, getting a new life and all that stuff, and becoming a teacher again, it sort of redeems his life, and it's kind of fun. And then he's found out by a group of people who see everything, and those are called waiters. And the book was going to be called Waiters and Watchers. And it's like, so all the waiters in the book look the exact same because they're all part of a network of people, and they're not mean. They wait. They're waiting for something, but they don't know what they're waiting for.
Oh my God. You're not going to try to recreate it?
Nah, I mean, maybe I could, and I'm sorry about
a different project.
Yeah, but it was hard when you lose that much work.
Oh, I'm mortified for you. It's giving me like flashbacks of college, and my project, it's gone. The outage took it away, and there wasn't the cloud back then to save it. And very painful. That's very painful. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. So I have, and then I've written quite a bit of poetry. I've won awards in poetry, and I for a while I trained myself in something called sudden fiction, which is when you try to have a whole story in about a page. So the definition of a short story is something has to happen. So the idea in sudden fiction is that you try to have a whole thing going on, and then just one little line that makes everything happen. And something has to happen. Mm. And, I can send them to you if you'd like.
Yeah. I'd love that. Absolutely. I think it'd be really, really fun to read, because of course I've read and seen a lot of your workout books, and not my genre, but amazing, obviously. And my husband now has read them multiple times. That's his genre. But yes, I would love to read your fiction. That would be.
You just got it sent to you, so there you go.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so Laura and Kay are headed to the woods, and they are going to meet Robin Wood. Like this is one of the big adventures that happens in the book, and is a lot of fun.
When you look at the entire book, you'll notice that this is one of the few adventures that's multi-chaptered.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
This is also an adventure that Kay is part of.
Yes.
Now, and depending on which version you have, now here's the problem with this particular. There are 3 different adventures. There's one where they chase with they attack those kind of half humans, the anthropomorphi. Mm-hmm. There's another version where the one that she's basically just a kind of a fairy queen, and the house is all made of food. And the third one is well, I'm not going to worry about it so much now, but they're all radically
This is the one that you made me get.
right. And in this one is the anthropomorphi, right? These are
Yes.
these are the half humans, and
Mhm.
they have a foot, they have a foot on their head, and they're all these different, and they have poisonous stings, and then at the end they have to fight the Weirin, these griffins, and but there's a couple things. So it is enchanted. It's an enchanted story, but K's part of it. So it's not a transfiguration. It ties more into the Mim and the beast Galapagos story at the end of the book. So you have a witch story. You have this very long story in the middle of the book. That's, I mean, the terrible humans and, griffins and all kinds of things. And then Galapagos at the end of the book. And those become they become their own little triangle sitting in the book. There's a lot of parallels between Mim and Galapagos, and of course this obviously is important because it's the longest of the stories. It's interesting because that is the artwork I have over there on the wall is from from this book,
the Dennis Nolan illustration.
Yeah, Dennis Nolan. I bought his early piece. In fact, I've emailed him a couple times. I want to buy everything he has. Yeah, he does. He charges me a bit, but I don't. It's one. There's no. I have it. Nobody else does. It's one off.
Wow.
But you have this very interesting version. At the end, Arthur's going to have a broken collarbone. Kay finally is the hero of a story. And it's, instead of him he's proud, and Dad is going to be proud of Kay. It just sits, and Kay sort of kind of changes here into the positive for the first time. And also Merlin sort of kind of changes towards Kay because Merlin adopts this story. Now, at the same time, it's also a heroic adventure because they're going to go save some of the people in the village who have been captured by the bad guys. And in the version we're reading, they're going to eat them. Mm-hmm. They're cannibals. Yeah, whereas in the other versions, they're just trapped, like in the Galapagos. So it's interesting because Mim is a cannibal. The anthropodongids are cannibals, and Galapagos is just basically wants the ransom money for everybody. So it's an interesting little, it's just an interesting little thing. All right, so there you go. There's your.
I think cannibalism is interesting because it really usually gets such a reaction from people that it's weird because I feel like it comes up, but it's not deeply explored or talked about, or maybe I'm just not watching the Bigfoot channels and the cannibalism shows. Maybe I've missed those, but yet anytime you say that, people are like, oh, ooh, cannibalism, it's like, it creeps people out, very rightfully so, but it's very, I believe, and you can probably speak more to that, but like historically has been like in the culture for a very long time.
Well, I was just at a wedding not long ago, and the wedding was in Donner Pass, the famous Donner Party, who went against they tried to cross that great Sierra mountain range when you first, you get off that long Nevada plateau. They were told not to go that time of year. They were told to go a different route. They wouldn't listen to anybody. And of course, they ended up, historically snacking on each other. And it's still called Donner Pass. Yeah. And it's funny because there was that story from that rugby team in Argentina that crashed in a plane. And they ended up, surviving by eating each other. And these stories just leap into my mind so vividly because, I guess, I don't know, Soylent Green, that movie back in the day when the last line of the show, Soylent Green is people, in the future we eat dead people. The cannibal thing just seems to flick a switch somewhere in our
It
brains.
does. It really does. But like a lot of the plane crash scenes and things like that, that's more like this is our last resort. But I don't know enough about it, but I feel like there's some interesting, understanding of like the cultures where that was kind of I don't want to say normal, but that was part of that civilization, I guess. Where, I don't want to say Aztec, or like there was a lot of like sacrificial.
Right? Very much. And well, you can even see it in the movie, the Daniel Day-Lewis movie, Last of the Mohicans.
The Last of the Mohicans, yeah.
Where the guy eats the heart.
It's
just, and it's like, okay, that's a scene that makes you kind of go.
Oh yeah, it's very.
Now, how accurate any of this stuff is, I have no idea.
I don't know, but I'm fascinated to know. So, in any case, cannibalism.
Yeah, in the version we're reading, right?
Right. And so the fun thing about this is an adventure. And I know in one of your blog posts, you talk a lot about that kind of that bonding when one goes on adventure with another person. And throughout the book, we see a lot of that, right? We see a lot of the characters that pair off over different things, whether it be the port or fighting, right? Last chapter, we've got, Kay and Ward are constantly bonding in different ways or falconing or anything. But
this is the one. This is the one.
This is the big one.
Kay.
Yeah, this is
this one changes Kay. Yeah, and don't forget, there's the other thing too. Don't miss that. But there's a lot of characters we meet, but clearly it's Arthur's first crush. When he sees Marion.
Oh yes,
and it's interesting.
Sets him up for disaster later on, but
well, if he would have married someone more like, I'm not ripping on Guinevere or any of the other women we're going to meet in coming up later on, but it's real clear that he is Merlin is completely Merlin has prepared Arthur well. In fact, it's a stunning education. But we throughout the Sword and the Stone, we see the flaws that he's going to have too. His blind love for people who are mean to him, and this is going to see it with Mordred. You're going to see it with Lancelot, and frankly, you'll see it with a little bit with Merlin coming up. What he wants to be versus who he is a great one, and there's a bit of a life lesson there. I'm really happy with what I became. I'm very happy. I love my career. I love, of course, even if I was a marine biologist studying dolphins, I would still probably lift weights. I love what I've become in life. But when you're sitting around as a little one thinking about what you want to be when you grow up, and then, I would say I'm rare because I am very much what I would be very proud as a child to know what I'm doing now, especially with you. If you could sit little Danny John down, you'd be talking about weightlifting and the Sword and the Stone. I already do that. Yeah, but you get paid a lot of money for that. Oh, okay. That's great. That's awesome. When you read the Sword and the Stone and you listen to what young Wart wants and what he wants to become, and that's just it's just so much different than we'd hoped for. He all he wants to be is a knight, but he can't become a knight, and he never does become a knight.
No,
he goes from squire to king in one scene, and a very poorly treated squire to king in one scene. And of course, I asked this a lot in the later chapters. Are you up to your destiny? And that is, and getting back to Jung, that is a question. I think a lot of us get hit in the face by our destiny in life. I've had, we had a parent yell at us one time because his son dropped the winning pass in the end zone, and somehow that was our fault. And he said to us as a coaching staff, "You ruined his life." And of course, my friend Tony said later on, which I still think is great. And he goes, well, I should have said to the dad, well, you had an 18-year head start on it, but are you up to your destiny? We're going to throw you the ball while you're wide open in the end zone to win this, to get us to win the playoff game, and you drop it. I'm going to put you in the ring, and you have to improve this much to be national champion. Let's see what you do. You walk into a room and you see the person that just makes you go, wow. What do? Do you walk up and chat to the person, or do you just go and walk out the door? And so with Arthur, there's no one. I mean, is he up to his destiny? And the next, I'm going to include, so you got Sword and Stone. I'm going to say the next 4 books, and the next 3, which are the Once and Future King, he does not live up to his destiny. But in the 5th book, when he gets back to his friends, the Badger and Cavil the dog and all the other characters, the goat, all of a sudden, okay, I'm going to do what's right. I'm going to give him whatever he wants. And because war is stupid. And of course, a war breaks out. So,
yeah. I mean, this is very much a hero's journey as well. It's a book on education, but of course, the parallels between all the hero stories, the Grail, all of all of it is.
Which is why I think I love Joseph Campbell. I think since his death, a lot of his work has been turned into stupid. And you have to be careful about reading Joseph Campbell. And I'm saying that as a person in the same field. He was a comparative religion person, and of course I taught that at the college level too. I'm not ripping on him in any way, but I think if you watched maybe the Power of Myth series, that Bill Moyers Joseph Campbell thing, after reading the Once and Future King, or the whole 5 books or whatever, and then went and read them through with that vision of the hero's adventure, and because I think T.H. White really does a good job with the hero's adventure. You can see it in Dune. I think the hero's adventure pretty well. I don't know how well this movie is portraying it. The new one coming out. I saw it. I think it's fine. But we're
only part of the way through, though, too, right?
Yeah, and I thought some of the Batman, I think they got to quit re-releasing Batman every 2 years because they can't keep up. But I liked the Batman with I think it was Christopher Nolan was the director. That would be Begins, The Dark Knight, and I didn't like the third one. But the problem Batman always has is that his parents are killed in front of him, and he vows to fight crime. Well, you can never stop fighting crime. So you got to be very careful about what you decide your destiny is going to be. And if you decide that you want to win the gold medal at the Olympics, do you know how, I don't know if you know this, but many people are very miserable for a long time after they get their gold medals or world records. It's a huge drop off because it becomes that Peggy Lee song, Is That All There Is?
Yeah. Yeah, because you just have one thing you're trying to achieve, and then what?
Yeah. Well, and a lot of, I've been with people who their goal was to get married, but it wasn't to be in a marriage. So the pretty white dress, the flower girl, the band, the dance, the cake, the bouquet, and then there's life, and very quickly there's stinky bowel movements and grass that needs to be mowed, and something, a dish rag that got left under a sink and now smells, and it's all the realities of life. And I think so. One of the things you have to be careful about the hero's adventure is once you come up, Jonah and the Great Fish, Pinocchio, all those times in Harry Potter where you rise out of that dungeon, out of the underground, out of the cave, and you're back in the life, and you've done your job. I have a book back there called Now What? And I wrote Now What to deal with the athletes I work with. Not so much the ones who fail to get their goal. Those guys are easy. We just try again. It's the ones who got their damn goal.
Mm.
The hardest coaching you can do is when someone gets, my dad's curse, my father of blessed memory. I hope you get everything you want. That was his curse.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's that great Star Trek episode. I think it's season 2. It might be season 1. It's where, Live Long and Prosper gets invented by Leonard Nimoy. And it's that one where he goes back to the Vulcan because he's going to have to, because he's married, and T'Pring, the wife, tricks him. And at the end, there's that great line. Well, you will find that having something isn't nearly as good as wanting something. It's that great punch you in the face line. On our adventure here with Kay and Wart going on this adventure, Kay has wanted and wanted and wanted one of these adventures, and he's going to get it. And the cool thing about this particular story is he gets it, and he's the hero. He kills the Warren, depending on what book we have. And then on the other side is, now we're back to, Arthur getting everything. And the funny thing is, you'll see this ascendancy of Sir Kay after the story, where now he's studying to be a knight. Wart is disappearing. The story of going to see the badger and bumping into the hedge pig. And that's the night before everything happens. And all of a sudden now Kay as a knight treats Wart terribly. And then we go to London and everything switches.
Yeah.
Kay is a knight, but all of a sudden he has to bend a knee to his squire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, spoiler alert.
He pulls the sword from the stone.
Yeah, he pulls the sword from the stone.
I love that, the now what, because I feel that many of us, and that's why I guess they call that, could be in life, we call that like midlife crisis, or we think we're working towards one thing, and then maybe we don't prepare ourselves for what that is. And like you said, like marriage isn't, getting married isn't the same as being in a marriage, or being at the top of your career, and like understanding what that is. Do you think that's a matter of like, just as a martial artist, is that a matter of just preparation? Like, do we need to then, or is destiny just destiny, and then we have to deal with it as we get to it? Can we not prepare for destiny, I guess?
So as an athlete, in June 1979, I threw at the Nationals. I came home to Salt Lake City. It was a 2-hour ride back up. Our assistant coach picked me up, took me back up to Logan. I went into my dorm. It was empty because it was everyone had graduated. I missed graduation. Everyone got home. I packed up. I got a ride back from Logan, another 2-hour ride down to Salt Lake City, got on a flight, went to South San Francisco. My parents picked me up, and I'm sitting there at the dinner table. There's mom and dad. I'm 21 years old. I have a bachelor's degree. I've used all 4 years of my education of my eligibility as an athlete. And for the first time since I was in the, never in my whole life had I had that. Well, now what? I had, my plan was to throw the discus far. My plan was to graduate from college. I had done all that. And I got to tell you, that was one of the hardest transitions in my life. Because I had to, for the first time, it wasn't I just showed up in the fall to go do something. So I went to work in a cheese factory because that's answers any and all questions. Yes.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to have to hear about that more next time. I'm going to write down cheese factory, pick up on that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But that's the now what, you get your goal. And with Kay, he was just going to probably hammer poor Arthur for the rest of his life, but it's not the way it happened. So there you go. So that's the beauty of the chapters we're about to break apart.
Okay. Which we will have to break apart in our next chat.
Okay.
So listeners can hold on to that. But before I hang up with you, I want to say I really like your shirt. Normally you're in just the plain black, and today you've got a little bear and it says hibernate.
Oh, yeah, this is from that. It's a supplement I take for sleep called. And they sent me some T-shirts, and when I was getting ready today, I didn't even think about it, and I threw this on. But so yeah, Hibernate is a sleep supplement. I'm a big fan of, and
it's got like a lot of magnesium or something.
And a tiny bit of melatonin, tiny bit.
Okay.
And it makes me sleep really well. And if you go online, they have a great little 5-part article: original strength, easy strength, sleep, veggies and protein at every meal, and go for a walk. And that's how he summarizes how he got the doctor couldn't believe what great shape he was in. He said, "So are you doing a lot of cardio?" "No, I just go for walks." And they're good guys.
Until next time, Dan John.
Sounds great.
Always a pleasure talking to you.
All right. And we'll talk soon. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Bye-bye.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. You can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/Sifu Mimi Chan to help keep this podcast going. Follow me and interact on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.